So the next section here is the Windows settings. So if you are a Mac user, or you maybe just prefer it to be a little bit different, you can change how the layout is here for the buttons. And what it's talking about is these buttons up here, the minimize, maximize, close buttons on the top side here. So by default they're on the right, and if you are a Windows user, that's more familiar, that's what you're used to. You can change them to the left side. Mac users might be a little bit more comfortable with that, or used to having buttons on the left side here. But even more than that, there's a classic Mac option you could choose here. But GNOME, so the old versions of GNOME, by default they just have the close button, they don't have the minimize and maximize. So if you don't want those buttons there and you just want the close button, you could set that to GNOME and it will do that. But classic Mac is a little bit of it's a mixture of the two. So you've got the minimize and maximize buttons on the right side, but your close button is on the left side. So you can change all this behavior, as you can see, very easily in just by changing these window settings here. And you can set it to what you're more used to, what you're more comfortable with, what you prefer. And all you have to do is just change the options here. So and then there's a list of actions that you can change. So it says actions on title bar, double click. So by what it's talking about is up here where it says system settings, this whole section here is basically the title bar. It's not visually separated from the top of the windows and the tabs and all that, but it's talking about basically where the word system settings, like the size of that is the title bar. So and so if you double click, it toggles maximize, and you can see I just did it there. It toggles between the maximize. I need to click it again and it goes back to the smaller size. So it does, by default, the behavior is basically replicate this same button here, this maximize, minimize, or not minimize, but maximize button here. Minimizes this one. But it says action on title bar middle click is lower. So if you use the middle mouse button and you press it in, if you have a separate middle mouse button, or in most standard mouse configurations, there'll be two buttons, left and right, and then a scroll bar. But if you can click the scroll bar in, it counts as a third middle mouse click. So if I do that on my particular system, it's not doing anything. So either action on title bar middle click. So yeah, it's either not registering that as the same thing, it's probably seeing it as a scroll bar click instead of a middle click. And that's okay, because it would just either lower it, but you can do some other things here like minimize, and if you want to change what it does, you can do that. So for example, if you don't want the double click to toggle between maximize and all that, you could have it do minimize, or nothing, or you can change those sorts of behaviors just by setting that. So I changed that to and now it did work. So I changed that to minimize for the middle button click, and it did work that time. So I'm not sure what the lower function actually does, but yeah, I'm not sure what that does. That's weird. But anyway, so it does work, and if you have a mouse wheel and you click the mouse wheel in, that counts as the middle click, because when I had it set to minimize, it behaved in the expected way there. So but you can leave all this to default too, and it generally won't change too much. But if you have a specific layout, or just even if you're coming from a different system that you're used to a certain behavior, you can probably replicate it between all these settings here, between the title bar double click. So when you double click on that, when you middle click on that, when you right click on this, and by default it brings up the menu, but you can change even that if you want. And then it says action on title bar with mouse scroll. So it does nothing by default, but if you scroll the mouse wheel on the top, if you change that to something, you could use shade and unshade, which I'm not even sure what that is, to be honest. And adjust opacity are the two options that you can do with the mouse scroll there. So but there's just some some customization tweaks you can do for that. If you go to the behavior tab over here, it's talking about the Windows focus. So it says the Windows focus mode indicates how windows are activated. It has 3 possible values. Click means windows must be clicked in order to focus them. That's the default behavior, and that's normal. That's probably what most users are used to. So sloppy means windows are focused when the mouse enters the window. And mouse means windows are focused when the mouse enters the window and unfocused when the mouse leaves the window. So by default, what it's talking about is, you can see there it went kind of grayish and duller color when I clicked outside of it, and then when you click back in it, this window is now in focus, whereas when I clicked off of it, it was not in focus. You can also see it down here a little bit on the panel. If I click off of it, it gets a lighter color, just to kind of show you that you're no longer focused on the system window. And if I click on it again, you can see it darkens to just get your attention, like, okay, this is the currently focused window, and it's this one here. So that's generally what it's talking about, and these are just different settings you can use to modify that to your liking. It says bring windows which require attention to the current workspace. So if you use multiple workspaces and something wants attention on another workspace, if you turn this on, it will bring it into your current one, just to kind of get your attention, even if you're not actively in that workspace. And it says focus mode for new windows is smart, and there's a different option that says this option provides additional control over how newly created windows get focus. It has 2 possible values. Smart applies the user's normal focus mode, and strict results in windows started from a terminal not being given focus. Okay, so that's pretty Windows starting from the terminal, that's pretty, you're not going to be doing that too much. The average person isn't going to be doing that too much, so you probably don't have to worry about that setting too much. You just leave it as smart, I would say. It says attach dialog windows to the parent window. Let me see if it gives me a tooltip about that, because I'm not really even sure what that means, to be honest. And no, it doesn't, but okay, well, but if you wanted to turn that on, you can. By default, it is off. So it says moving and resizing windows. So if you want to change the location of newly opened windows that appear on the screen, you can do that. It could either be centered on the screen, you can manually specify, you can have it appear wherever your mouse cursor is, or automatic. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn even more, you can find my books at bookstoread.com/Jonathan. That's books, the number 2, read.com/JONATHAN.